Hello and welcome to the very first edition of the Komie's Homies podcast. I'm here with my main homie Sam Carr and a very special guest, Mr. Zane Navratil.
What's going on?
How you doing, Zane?
I'm honored to be on the first of many episodes of Komie's Homies. I love that.
What's going on, y'all?
Yeah. So there's a lot going on in the pickleball world right now, and you seem to be somebody that people talk about as kind of being in the center because you're kind of your own free thinker and you're a very smart guy. You're a businessman. So tell me what you think about what's going on with the, you have an MLP contract, right?
I do
Yeah.
for now.
So what do you think about what's going on with the MLP contracts? And feel free to give a background, any history.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure how exhausted people are of Tour Wars or not, but I think the sport, the professional sport, is definitely at an inflection point, and unfortunately, it seems like right now the MLP that I knew and love it's not the same Major League Pickleball, which is very, very unfortunate. So I'd say essentially the players are being asked to take pay cuts, which I've always said is reasonable. In fact, as soon as this happened, I think I was sitting in this chair and said, like, we're gonna have to take pay cuts. Economically, it makes sense, right? So I don't want this to be construed as I'm anti-pay cut, but the way in which it's being rolled out it's abysmal, and it's only punishing the players that showed loyalty to Major League Pickleball.
Yes, because I guess there was a signing war between the PPA and the MLP, and if you went with the PPA, I heard they're getting a lot more favorable treatment. First their contracts were bigger, but they're asking to cut less, and they're not hampered with that 200-day requirement. So what do you know about the difference between how the two tours are being handled?
Yeah, so during that inflationary bidding period, essentially, the PPA was on their back foot. They were offering multiples to players that were unsigned. During that period, I had an offer on the table from PPA for more than 3 times the amount that I ended up signing for with Major League Pickleball. So players took a pay cut initially by signing with Major League Pickleball. I've never heard of any player who was offered more. If they had competing offers, I don't know a single player who was offered more money from Major League Pickleball than PPA.
And part of that might be because MLP got off the ground quicker with it, right? They're the ones that started signing people first, and I guess they kind of went away from the letter of intent that they had in place.
I don't know. I mean, they started signing people first, but I still had a competing offer. It doesn't change the fact that I had 2 offers on the table and signed the one for a third. Maybe I'm just an idiot.
Maybe this is oversimplified, but I think the players trusted Steve Kuhn of MLP a lot more than they trusted Connor Pardo and Tom Dundon of PPA. Is that fair?
That's the simplest way of putting it. I don't think PPA players trust Connor Pardo as far as they can throw him.
Doesn't he still owe you some money?
No, they paid me after numerous requests.
They probably
and
got tired of hearing about it, right?
It didn't help their argument, because I could say legitimately that they owed me money from January 1st of this year. So that didn't help their argument, and then I don't know if it helps their argument anymore, because when they actually paid me, then they know that they're admitting that I was correct the entire time as well. So it's like, at that point, when they owed me money in September, it was a lose-lose. You either pay me 9 months late and acknowledge that I was correct the entire time, or you just continue to not pay me, and I continue to say they're not paying me.
Yes. Well, I'm glad to hear you got your payout.
Well,
It probably didn't really make a dent, but because you got your point across. And anyway, so Steve Kuhn, as far as I know, is always a player's businessman, right? Because he started at Dreamland, and he gave people free places to stay, and he really supported the players. And was that influential to you and why you went with MLP because of your trust for him?
Yeah, I think, I trust Steve and I trust the organization that, I never had any issues with getting paid. They just did what they promised, right? And so when these contracts come around, am I going to sign with PPA, who never does what they promise, or am I going to sign with Major League Pickleball, which kept every promise to me? So, yeah, I mean, Steve has done awesome things for this sport. Like Dreamland is great. Like he created a rating system in Duper, and he created Major League Pickleball. Yeah, I mean, I trust Steve, and I think that while this didn't work out in his favor, obviously he's getting crushed right now. I don't think that you can blame somebody for doing what they thought was best at the time. I think maybe he made plenty of mistakes, but I don't think you can question his morality at the least of it.
I mean, I always felt like Steve acted just for his love of the game, and then he as he got to know the players, he really had genuine affection for the players.
I think that's correct. Like, yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. I don't think Steve saw us as one of his assets, as the other tour does. So I don't know. How how well do you know Steve?
Well, Steve and Brooks used to come to my house. You've been to my house and played
Mm-hmm.
pickleball, and Steve would talk about Major League Pickleball and Duper and all those things when they were ideas. And so I know firsthand that his intention was always just to promote the game that he loved. And I actually, to be honest, thought his vision was too big when I heard it, because during that time, we would go to tournaments and the stadium court would have, 40 people watching a match.
Mm-hmm.
But to see it turn into what he had great vision, and I think he always acted in the interests of the players. And I think it was, it's devastating for him for how it turned out. And now that MLP is where it is, and they actually, I have a question for you. It seems like Connor Pardo from the PPA was actually getting in touch with MLP people and trying to negotiate contracts down.
Yeah, that's yeah. So if I'm negotiating a contract with Major League Pickleball, I would be under the assumption that I should be speaking with Major League Pickleball. To my knowledge, nobody from Major League Pickleball is talking to PPA players about taking their cuts.
And does that give you the feeling that maybe PPA has the upper hand in this negotiation, or they're continue to be very difficult to deal with?
I don't know. Why do you think Connor is talking to Major League Pickleball players?
My personal opinion is that he thinks he can use his position and his words to try to get people to voluntarily give away money that they signed to. To me, I've never really seen anything like this where there's contracts in place and then all you have to do is send an email out and automatically get 40% off your contract.
Yeah, so you're an attorney, obviously. Like, actually, I guess people might not know that about you. This is episode number 1. We just dove right into.
I'm just hoping they see the guy with the dreadlocks, and if they don't already know me, like, well, who the hell's that guy? Maybe just do a little Google search. No, but it's.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
And essentially, there are players that I know for a fact signed an agreement, and then they had a written addendum in that agreement with Major League Pickleball to bump their salary up. And it was simply an email back and forth saying X player is going from this amount of dollars to this amount of dollars. There's an email from Brooks during that whole inflationary period. And is there any, I mean, it's certainly unethical to simply say from Major League Pickleball's side, we're not going to honor that. Is there any case in which that may be illegal to do?
So you're saying there's an original signed contract, but then the terms are being changed.
So there's a full contract, and then basically just the payment amount is changed via email from Major League Pickleball.
Is there any reason given so you have to have consideration for, well, first we got to sign contracts. You have to have an offer, an acceptance, and an agreement. So, and there has to be consideration. So if they're offering more money, I assume that the person who was asking for more money gave some reasons why they thought they needed more money and how it would benefit MLP. So if that was discussed, then you have consideration for why it was, why they were going to modify it. And then if it's accepted, that's fine. But if it's never signed, then it comes down, I think, to state law. If the signature is needed, I think as a lawyer, you'd have to read all the documents and see it in context. The other thing is that the original agreement might say that this is the entire agreement, and any type of external conversations or writings do not become part of the agreement. And that's like boilerplate, and that would be near the end of the contract. And I've looked at the contracts, but that's something that I would have just seen and not read closely because it's just standard boilerplate.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I don't know those facts for certain. So
see, I've never heard that. I've heard that people went back after the fact and got permission so they could play APPs and things like that. Because remember, in the contract it would state that you can only do MLP events. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you have to get written permission.
Yeah. So there were some written addendums that are not being honored.
I'd be interested in looking at that other deal. Of course, it's complicated by Brooks is gone now, but of course he was commissioner at the time. Mm-hmm. And I think there's arguments to be made that they should be allowed to have the extra money. And I would think that you could use that in a negotiation where somebody's trying to get you to drop 40%, but you have extraneous writings that say you should be getting even more. Mm-hmm. They could at least offset. And, definitely, if I was the player, I would be using it to some extent.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting. They're saying that on the flip side, that if I were to say accept the 40% via email, they're considering that done. So they're sort of having it both ways. They're not honoring an email written addendum, but they're also saying, okay, you consented via email to take a pay cut.
But on there, they are saying about consideration. So they're saying instead of being obligated for 200 days, you're obligated for 120 days. Mm-hmm. So there's consideration. Which means you're giving something to get something.
Sure.
Which I'd like. What's your opinion of the 200 versus 120 days?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just in terms of MLP or the comparison.
Yeah, and MLP as far as being supposedly in their service for that number of days. I mean, I have opinion, but I want to hear what yours is first. When you heard about that first, they were going to drop it from 200 to 120, and otherwise they're going to make you do kind of like clinics and do corporate events and kind of basically have you do stuff that if you're a traveling pro pickleball player, you might find repugnant. What was your thoughts on that?
Yeah, if you don't take the pay cut, it's very clear that they're going to make your life absolutely miserable. I looked through the documents. You're basically, they've put something together where you're going to be on court for actually teaching on court for 9 hours per day. And that the times that were on there was 8 to 11, 12 to 3, and 6 to 9.
In the beginning,
you're teaching for 9 hours, and you are there from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m.
So originally, people were asking, well, what is it you're going to have us do? And they weren't answering. So I think that in probably response to that, they came to that. So my thoughts on it are, if you're only paying pickleball 50 days, even if you just go down to 120, you still got 70, and they could make you do things. Mm-hmm. The second thing that I thought of, these people are not, you've set up clinics. It's hard work. You have to market them. Mm-hmm. You have to get the courts. There's a lot of work that goes to it, and then they still have to pay the players travel and they have to make it an MLP event, because only MLP events are what you have to do. Mm-hmm. So they have to market it as an MLP event. My thought on it when I was reading it, and I was talking to some, players that I
Did you see the report about the basically the PowerPoint of what those 200 days are going to look like? Is that what you're referring to?
Well, at the time there wasn't one, so
Sure,
I haven't seen what it is, but
it's new. It's probably came out within, well, Bruce and Ann showed it to me at San Clemente between matches.
I think they came up with it because why not come up with something so you could have more leverage? But I don't think they're in the business of doing that. I think it's
It's a scare tactic and a bluff and nothing else.
that's what I think. I think it's a bluff.
But I think if they want to be a pain in the ass, they can send you wherever and get you to do lessons for $30 an hour as an MLP event. Like, I think they can figure out a way to punish you.
Well, they'd have to have staff. They'd have to have staff. They'd have to get the courts. That's not what they're in the business to do. It's a lot of hard work, and if they're not it's going to cost money. It costs money to market. It costs money to have that staff. Are they really going to spend money and all that energy and all that payroll just to punish a pickleball player who just wants to honor the contract that you signed them with originally?
It appears that way.
See, I think it's a bluff. I thought from the beginning it was. And if you're down to 120 days, you still have 70 days that they could have you do these things.
This is true.
I
think they will punish certain players.
I think the only one that I saw that has any teeth is saying that you're not going to let you play in the PPA events. However, if they don't merge, then it doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
You saw the Travis Rettenmeyer communication.
I did. I don't know if was that via the little player collective group chat.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Travis is an interesting case because
he's on both sides, right?
Well, yeah, he's a Major League Pickleball team owner, but he's also a player, and yeah, I mean, he's getting hosed like the rest of us. And I don't, I've never seen any of these merger documents, but I don't know if this is a good deal for most of the team owners either. It's a good deal for a select few team owners, but it's possible that Travis could hold that view from both sides of the table that this is bad, as an MLP owner and as an MLP player.
Well, I feel like from reading his communication that he hoped the merger doesn't go through with PPA, which doesn't surprise me because if you have to go to the table with them from scratch, then you're dealing with Dundon and Connor Pardoe, and I don't think they cut good deals for other people. You're back to where Steve started in the very beginning, where he had MLP, and when he went to try to work with PPA, Dundon said, yeah, you can do it, but I own it, I control it, you're like a little person, and I think that's how he operates, and now I think it's come full circle, and it's back there again. I always thought that the Vibe threat was nothing but a threat. I think it scared, the MLP was so new, and Vibe, to have a competitive league so soon, when it was so young and tender and frail, was really scary. So they came to the table, had the letter of intent with PPA, but the deal that PPA made turned out to be so onerous that Steve really had no choice but to break the letter of intent, which was not a real contract, and go about it the way that he did. Do you have any opinion on any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably two sides to that argument. I think the biggest argument was that the team owners weren't privy to this plan.
Which part? The part where we started signing people?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So I think that's where the majority of the frustration comes from them. They felt blindsided by it, but it was a blindside.
Yes, but I think that the deal. So his choice at the time was, because he has a letter of intent, which I think gave them 4 teams, PPA, Connor Pardoe, Tom Dundon, gave them 4 MLP teams and 20% ownership. Well, at the time, MLP teams were selling for, I don't even know if they had reached $1 million yet. I think that they were under when they signed the letter of intent. And then by the time he was done, when Anheuser-Busch came in and some of these people, I've heard somewhere between 6 and 12 million they were going for.
Yeah, I heard the high end of 12. I think I know the Dude Perfect, I think, was sold at a valuation of, the percentage was sold at a valuation of $8 million, I believe. And there were a couple of teams sold after that for higher. That's what was out there. I haven't seen the documents, obviously, so I don't know if that's completely factual, but.
So if you think that you're entering an agreement with somebody and that a team's going for, less than $1 million, you're giving away $4 million, and you're like, okay, that's $4 million, and this whole entity is so small right now, 20%, and we'll merge. But now, okay, now teams are going for $8, $10, $12 million, so I'm giving away 4 teams. That's $40 million or 40-something million dollars right there, and 20% interest in something that now the whole enterprise, God only knows what a whole enterprise of a whole league is like compare like an NFL team to the whole NFL.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a bad deal, and he hadn't signed it yet. It was a letter of intent, and I don't think there's any love lost between how MLP and Steve ever got treated by them.
Yeah, it seemed like that deal just continued to stall. I mean, my contract, some contracts that I have heard of. Well, I won't speak specifically about any contracts, but I think there was some wording in some of them that indicated the deal was supposed to be closed by January 15th of 2023, and obviously we're in August of 2023, and it wasn't done.
So I think a question that I don't know the answer to is whether when Steve saw something that was a letter of intent that maybe at the time he thought valued at $10 million or so became valued at, I don't know, $75 or $80 million. I don't know whether he went back to try to negotiate with them to change the letter of intent, but I can anticipate that it would not be well received, and he might get thrown out, kind of like his first meeting with them. So why not? I know in his mind what I'm thinking he thought anyway was, why not sign players, give the money to the players, save the money on this agreement. MLP is so strong now. I've got such a good relationship. I'm a players guy, and I'm going to take care of the players. And he actually really won that war. And I heard that at one point Connor Pardeau was making some phone calls to people saying, we've lost, we're done.
Yeah, I mean, he won the player signing war for sure. Yeah, it's been an impressive comeback.
So now we have MLP. I understand there was 2 investors that came in. I guess you heard about that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a $50 million infusion.
Yeah, Al and Jason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I guess they just sold 12 premieres for 400. So there's another 4.8 million.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what they sold the Challenger level for, but my guess would be...
Challenger, basically it was a Dutch auction to see which 12 teams were in Premier. And so they raised $4.8 million there. The teams from Challenger don't have to pay anything.
They don't have to pay anything. All right, so they raised another. So now they got $55 million.
Well, from what I understand, I believe that the $50 million is now going into Newco from Jason and Al's investment. And the $4.8 million is in the MLP coffers.
Okay. Well, it sounds like there's a lot of money being bandied around, and if some players don't renegotiate their contracts, MLP is still going to survive.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that MLP is going to go bankrupt just by lack of funds is, I think, ridiculous. Like, the only way that these entities go bankrupt is if they just choose to do a reorganization because they don't want to pay these player salaries.
That will not play well in the public.
No, it won't. And then I think it
would ruin the league, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the team owners of Major League Pickleball aren't going to allow their investments to go down to zero, right? They're not just going to call it quits and stop funding the league. They might want to try and do a reorganization, but they're not just going to say, like, no, they're not going to do a Chapter 11 liquidation, right? So,
and I thought Travis Rettenmeyer's text was so, germane, and that's the reason I changed the whole focus of our podcast today, because as an owner, he was suggesting in there that merging with PPA may not be the best move here.
I still think that they're just too different. I don't think there's a sport where there's a flourishing team league and a flourishing individual league. I think team stuff wins in the United States, and yeah, I don't. 5 years from now, either PPA or MLP is, even if they do merge tomorrow and they form this new co, one of them is going to be gone, right? Even though if they're under the same company, they're going to say, okay, the tournament format's doing better, we're just going to stick with tournaments, or the team format's doing better, we're just going to stick with team stuff. Like, I don't think that they're going to coexist in any sort of substantial way.
Do you think that Connor Pardo and Dundon with the PPA want MLP to survive, or do you think that they want to kill it off?
I mean, if they're an investor or if NewCo happens, if the merge happens, I would assume they would simply want everything to be under the brand name that they've built, right?
And Connor's got a team. He's got the Utah team.
Mm-hmm. But PPA is his baby, right? He's got a team, but PPA is his thing. He'd rather see that survive than the MLP.
Do you think there's enough of a audience now or in the next 5 years to support financially one or both of these tours?
That's a good question. I mean, I think the fact that so many people are playing is certainly it's important, right? I think we're certainly overpaid for the amount of viewers that we have, right? And that's not a new thing. I think even currently, before all of these inflated contracts, the amount of views that we're getting we're getting paid too much for the amount of views currently, and then we took that another step. But they're not worried about right now. They see what pickleball can become with how many people are participating. They believe that the viewership is going to come. Otherwise, they wouldn't be spending this money.
Yeah, I wouldn't think there would be a lot of smart people throwing all this money around if they didn't think at some point that they were going to get their investment back.
Right, definitely.
And like if you look at like the stock market's a forward-thinking vehicle, right? So like it's usually only about 6 months ahead, but like on news that's going to come, the stock market goes up or down. And I think that people are looking forward because, well, then the question becomes, there's all these new players coming in, and I'm talking about rec players coming in all the time. Do you see that equating almost like in a good ratio to the amount of ones that will then be viewing pickleball and attending pickleball or spending money on viewing pickleball?
Yeah, I mean, I think, people get hooked on this sport, and it's as much of a cult following as any other sport there is, right? So I think just continuing to turn players from your casual, like, plays once every couple of months person to the people that play a couple times per week, that's going to continue to happen because to this day, I've met thousands of people that play pickleball, and I'd like your perspective on this too, but I've never met somebody that started playing pickleball and then got into it and started playing 2-3 times a week and then just quit. I don't think I know.
You know anybody?
Well, I guess Sam kind of quit. You kind of quit for a little bit, but that's because you moved.
Yeah, that's true. I used to play a lot. Now I don't play as much. So, but I mean,
damn, the other person in this room just messed up my argument.
Yeah, we didn't have to go far to mess up your argument. Yeah, but don't tell them you just spent $279.99 on a new Gearbox paddle though. So
$250.
Oh, you got it for Would you have a discount code?
No, I just bought it used.
They're better used, I heard.
Honestly, it's just pre-laminated when you use.
Yeah, it's nice.
Well, those Gearbox paddles, I don't know if they delaminate because there's no honeycomb.
Yeah, I'm just messing around. I'm just saying it because they're just poppy as all hell.
Yeah.
What do you use?
I mean, I'm sponsored by Gearbox and I'm using that new Pro.
Yeah, as you should. Any player who's not sponsored should pretty much be using that one while they can.
Yeah.
So okay, you're sponsored with Gearbox, and maybe you don't want to touch this, but switching gears, no pun intended, a little bit. What what do you think of that paddle? Like,
So my thought is, I'm hearing some negative things about like, that, that thing should be illegal. There's this, there's that. Well, so Raphael is an actual real engineer, and he made things to see. He has his own patents. He doesn't use honeycomb. It's got the carbon tubes in the middle of it, and he has the specifications that the US APA has, and he made a paddle that fulfills those specifications. And if people think that his technology is too good, then they probably need to change the specifications, or test it as it goes along. But what they're not going to find with that paddle, like as you would with some of the other honeycomb paddles, is I don't think you have delamination.
right.
So I think there's deflection issues. I really don't. All that paddle stuff, to me, I think we're going in the wrong direction on it, to be honest.
Yeah, I fully believe that Raphael has created something that I'm certain is within the rules. I'm certain he's met every single thing. I'm also certain that they are going to change the rules on him.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that for a second, because there's a, I didn't really want to talk about the paddle stuff too much, because that's part of the reason I stopped listening to other people's pickleball podcasts.
Fair. Well, we don't have to go with
no,
it.
but I want to make a point that I've never heard made. It's like, it goes back to what you were saying before. When you look at the live streams of pickleball, and it's not that much, it's like, I remember when I used to watch Ben Johns be playing singles 2.5 years ago, there'd be 200 people on there. Now maybe there's 4,000 or 5,000. But you get some like 18-year-old girl in her room, and she's putting on makeup, and she's got 150,000 young girls watching her do that. It shows how far we have to go. And then if you talk to people that don't know a whole lot about pickleball, or they're new to pickleball, I'm like, do you watch it? And the dink rallies, they don't understand how that ball's super hard. And it's really hard. It takes a lot to dink like that. I feel like pickleball needs to be entertainment. That's what when it comes right down to it, it's entertainment. And to be entertaining, I think you should be able to hit that ball as hard as you can. I mean, I think the faster it is and the more exciting it is, the more people will be able to have where there's revenue coming in, and you don't feel like you're overpaid for your contract. And I haven't heard that take, but that's what I think. I've just heard that it's boring, especially doubles, especially on the men's side.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think men's doubles is the most boring of the events to watch, unless you really know what you're watching, right? Unless you're one of the 1% that is seeing exactly what Ben is doing when he's moving the ball to a different spot 6 inches away, when he's going from the person's backhand to between their legs and trying to,
right, the chess match that goes on. Maybe as the audience gets more sophisticated, but I think with super powerful paddle, he would still be able to dink where he wants to dink it.
Yeah, I guess I don't want to talk about the paddles again too much, but I think that the poppy paddles could actually have an opposite effect. Like, we want power. Power is great, but with those super poppy paddles, what I worry about is the repercussions for hitting a bad speed up is then too. It's too. You're gonna lose the point. If you get a bad speed up, you're gonna lose the point.
That's what Colin John says.
Yeah, women speed the ball up all the time because they play more aggressively, because if they had a bad speed up, the point keeps going on and they can bail out. If I had a bad speed up to Deckel, like, it's just done. If I had a bad speed up to somebody who has that Gearbox paddle, like, and again, this is not a point about the Gearbox paddle. It's a testament. It's an unbelievable paddle, right? But if I speed it up at them incorrectly, it's the point's ending one way or another when I speed the ball up at them. So I almost think that more powerful paddles actually disincentivize the aggression that we want to see.
Well, but I think you'll be headed more toward third shot drives.
I think we want to see third shot drives.
Because I've spoken with Colin, and he said that, sometimes if he plays, I think he's played against Ben Newell or some guys who are just ripping the ball, and it doesn't really matter what their strategy is, but if they're ripping the ball so hard, it's really hard to deal with. And I think that's where the game should go, but I'm just one little guy. But as a compromise in the singles game, maybe they shouldn't have the same restrictions on paddles, because the singles game is exciting and people are smacking the ball, and the harder they hit it, I think the more exciting it is, because we have to remember that we're entertainment and we're trying to get eyes, so we can get advertisers out there, we can get butts into seats, and
yeah, we got to make the sport more entertaining, and I think we both agree. Like, we want more speed ups, we want more dynamic points. That translates better to viewership. I think maybe we just slightly disagree on how we get there, but I think we have the same sort of objective. And I think once we establish the same objective of what we want, I think then we can have these good debates about how to get there. Because right now, pickleball doesn't know what it wants. It's saying, well, do we want spinny paddles? No. Do we want powerful paddles? Maybe. But I don't know how you can even answer those first questions before you understand what the overall objective is.
Well, I'm glad you're here as our first guest for many reasons, but also because you're an innovator of the sport. And one of the things that I think would have been great for entertainment is if they would have kept the spin serve and they watch people take a swing on one side of their body, but it bounces on the other. People would be like, check this guy out. Because I think they forgot at the end of the day that, like I said, that we are entertainment. And I hate receiving the spin serves like you could do, where I don't know which way it's going to go. I've felt pretty foolish, but I have to admit, now that I think about it in that realm, they just thwarted an advance in the game. What's your take on that?
Well, yeah, I certainly agree. And again, like, if a curveball is legal in baseball, a spin serve should be allowed in pickleball, because, again, I've said this before, I'll say it again, there is no spin serve that is unpredictable. Every single one has a tell. If you watch closely enough what the person is doing with their hand or their paddle, as long as they're not hiding the ball, you absolutely can see exactly where that ball should bounce. Now, that's on you. That's a skill. You need to learn how to read it, but every single spin serve is readable. So, and kids loved it too. There's all this talk about, okay, we need to get more youth involved. Find me a 15-year-old pickleball player that was playing last year that wasn't using the spin serve.
Oh, they loved it.
You saw me get thrashed by a
Yeah, but you were
Hell
coaching.
yeah, dude,
you were
you got
coaching
fucked
Sam.
up.
You were coaching Sam on the back of his court. I forget where we were. Like, if he's turning this way, it's going to go that way.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but well, I think that would be, at this point, had the spin serve continued, it would be an absolute non-issue at all in professional game. Lower
Everybody
levels,
read
every single player will be reading it by now.
Except our friend Michelle Esquivel.
Potentially. But
and I love Michelle.
But by the end of last year, like, everybody was reading it. And so it became a non-issue. People are returning it.
Is it true that Sam Carr named it the Zanesaw?
No.
No?
I have no idea.
No, I don't think so.
Well, it was the chainsaw, because you did that motion, and then it became the Zanesaw. And the first time I ever heard it was from you, Sam, and then
I don't know, maybe.
And then it started catching on. I was like,
I don't know. I just made sense to me.
Well,
yeah.
Now it's just a piece of pickleball history.
Do you think?
Yeah, now we just,
like, as the game evolves, like, okay, more people that play recreationally though, do you think that will? I think it'll increase viewership, because then they'll kind of understand a little bit more about the dinking aspect of the slow game and stuff, so they could put eyes on it and be like, okay, yeah, I can't do that, like what they're doing on the TV now. Because I know that as we came into the sport, we watched pro matches and we saw people dinking, and we were like, oh, this looks like the easiest sport in the world, because we didn't understand like what y'all were actually doing or what that looked like. But I think that more people playing, if the trajectory keeps going up on recreational players being introduced to the game, and then the more they get hooked, like you said, people playing from once a week, 2 times, 3, 4, 5 times, eventually somebody's going to say, hey, let's play a tournament. Like, and that's where it's like, okay, you start being a competitive athlete, like in people's eyes, like, so I think that, do you think that could possibly?
I think, okay, so here's a fun theory. I think if you don't hit third shot drops, you don't give a shit about pro pickleball players. You don't understand pro pickleball. You don't care about pro pickleball. If you hit third shot drops, you understand enough about pickleball to understand what players are doing out there. When you first see people go out and play, they're just banging everything. They're hitting hard. They don't know about the kitchen game. Once you start hitting third shot drops, I think you know enough to appreciate professional pickleball.
So you're basically just utilizing the kitchen to what it's supposed to be utilized for by not allowing somebody to volley it out of the air.
Yeah, so once you get competent enough at the sport to understand why you might hit a third shot drop, I think that's when you can start to...
Or why you go soft.
Right, why you hit
Yeah,
soft,
because
why
now
you
that
get to the kitchen.
being around the game this long now I admire people where like they could get the ball slammed at them and they're in a defensive position, but they're able to like take all the pace off and drop it in the kitchen and totally neutralize it, because I know how hard that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the hardest shot in pickleball, to be able to take a ball that's just slammed at you and soften it to put it into the kitchen. That's harder than any other shot in pickleball. And amateurs, I teach a lot of clinics, amateurs are obsessed with learning to reset. I'm like, resetting is the absolute hardest thing that you can do on the pickleball court. It's harder than the third shot drop. It's harder than the dink. To take pace off, time it, and hit it perfectly into the kitchen is absolutely the most difficult shot in pickleball.
Yeah. So I wonder about, like, have you ever read comments from like people that like football or like NASCAR or whatever when they talk about when they watch pickleball? I mean, it's pretty. It's not nice.
Komie, I've got a YouTube channel, dude. I see it all. I see it all.
Like what?
You go check some of the
give us some
YouTube
examples.
comments. I mean, there's just plenty of haters. It's just like, this is boring. I could do this easily.
Yeah. Yeah, these guys aren't real athletes.
Gay tennis.
That's the biggest one.
That's kind of, no, I swear somebody will comment that on like probably that's on a few of my videos. I'm like, all right, whatever. It's like, the comments on YouTube are just brutal because they just don't understand, and I think YouTube algorithm is probably feeding some tennis players pickleball because so many tennis players are moving to pickleball. They understand that might be a natural progression for them. But some of the people that YouTube is feeding my videos to are not about it.
The NASCAR crowd, unless they're players, is not all about it. I feel like, okay, so I feel like the plan to make pickleball bigger seems to be to try to bring in these retiring big name tennis players and pay them a lot of money to come in. Do you think that having Jack Sock, Jeannie Bouchard, Donald Young is going to raise the number of live streams and bring a lot of eyes to the game?
I just think it's I think it's a good recruiting play. So if I'm a college tennis player that just finished up playing at USC, I'm done with tennis, right? Like I'm not going pro. Every now and then, if you're the top player on a USC team, if you're one of there might be like 10 college players that go pro after college.
Like Alshon, basically. He was like at the top of D2 or D3 or something
Yeah.
like that, right?
So he's the top of D3, but he's never going to be a professional tennis player, right? So I think seeing Jack Sock out there or Donald Young actually I think validates the sport for them. And I think that can be some of the next top talent is like somebody who's super athletic, tennis background that just finished up playing at Virginia or something, but isn't good enough to play pro tennis. So I don't know if Jack Sock, I don't know if, Donald Young, Sam Querrey, I don't know how good those guys are going to be, but I also don't think that's the issue at hand. I think that their impact on the sport isn't going to be necessarily as players, but legitimizing the sport in the eyes of tennis players.
I thought it was interesting when MLP was winning the bidding war with the PPA. The PPA went another direction and started signing the pro tennis players.
I thought that was smart.
And, if you look at, like, I checked and, like, Jack Sock has twice the number, at least, of Instagram followers as Ben Johns. And I think around the world he's known probably 50 times more.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that as a smart move, but we don't know. We'll have to see how it plays out. But I remember Jacksock. I went to Las Vegas and played a tournament, and
Yeah, that was the one at Mandalay Bay last year, right?
Mandalay Bay indoors.
Uh huh.
And Jacksock was there, and there was a big buzz about it.
Yeah.
And you know, he was pretty new, but it was a big buzz. And I think any buzz you get into the game, you know, is good if you're doing it for entertainment and you're doing it eventually to try to make money at it. You know, I think it's a good move, but we'll wait to see how it plays out. And McEnroe just signed a big paddle contract.
Yeah, with Owl. Owl is the official ball of APP for next year. Do you know that?
It is?
That's what I heard.
So it's going to be a quieter ball because the paddle's for quiet.
Oh, I actually don't know if it's a quieter ball. I think it's just the paddles are quiet.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm not supposed to release that, but nobody from the APP told me that. That's just the rumor. So some of the players seem to know.
Yeah, but I heard is that McEnroe got paid a lot. Well, you know, he demands a lot, but he got paid a lot to use that Owl paddle. I guess they're trying to address the fact that people have noise complaints about pickleball.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I'm curious whether Owl is something that I could use at a tournament, right? Because
it looks like it's got a felt base or something.
it does. It does have a felt. I've hit with it. It's very strange. It's very powerful paddle.
Is it?
It is
powerful?
It's very powerful. Yeah, it hits like a brick.
Oh, you might have spent your $250 too fast, Sam.
Dang.
You might have needed an Owl.
But it's legit though. Like it passes all the tests and stuff.
I don't know if they carved something out for them. I don't know. Actually, it seems like it's materials that shouldn't be legal. Like it's felt on the top, right? So I don't know how you can test that for grit or texture.
Yeah, how do you get spin off of felt?
Well, the ball sort of sinks into the felt a little bit. I mean, it's a decently spinny paddle.
Really?
I would assume that there has to be some sort of different standard that they might have tested those on. I can't imagine that that's a... I mean, I could be completely incorrect, but it's so far off from everything else that's ever been approved by USA Pickleball that it just... I guess I need to know more about it.
Doesn't USA Pickleball have a different category for like quiet paddles? Like
they might.
Didn't they come out with a different? Like,
I thought I had heard something about that, so maybe that's where that came from.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So going back, are you going to our original conversation? Are you standing firm and not going to lower your MLP contract?
Yeah. So at least under the current terms, the way that things, like I said, I am 100% A-okay with the pay cut. I understand. Like, I do. The way that this has been rolled out is almost as bad as they possibly could have done it. So unless something changes, I am staying firm on this. There is so much space to do this better, more equitable, where equally marketable players are paid in an equally marketable fashion. Yeah, so as it currently stands, yes, but I am absolutely willing to work with Major League Pickleball on this. Like, I am. I don't know if they're willing to work with me on this, though.
Well, I thought it was interesting, like going back to Travis Redmeyer, who's one of the owners, saying that he was encouraging people to stand pat, just because it's not fair, because PPA, he said, are taking between like around 10% pay cuts, and we're supposed to take 40.
Yeah, so I mean, the inequality here in a theoretically merged company is asinine. So you have Major League Pickleball, you have PPA, where the majority of their contracts were signed for 2 to 3 times the amount that MLP was signed. Meaning, like, MLP players had offers for 2 to 3 times the amount from PPA. So they're already inflated 2 to 3 times the amount. They have contracts for 20 tournaments, meaning like, okay, and the low end, you have to play 2 events. That's 60 days. Let's say 80 days. Their contracts are for 3 times the amount for about whatever that would be. That's like 40% of the time, 80 days versus 200, right? That's 40? I think that's
60.
40. 80 out of 200?
Oh, yeah, 40% of the time, yeah.
So
60% cut.
Yeah.
Their contracts are 60% less days already. They're 3 times as much money, and from that inflated amount, they're being asked to take somewhere between a 0 and 20% pay cut, when we're being asked to, our contracts are already smaller, they're already more days, and we're being asked to take a higher amount. If we're under a merged entity, like, we need to be playing by the same set of rules. Like, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
There's no other way of putting it. That's fucked up.
Do you feel like that now that Steve's gone, you're kind of negotiating, the MLP kind of feels more like the PPA almost, like you're negotiating with the PPA for your contracts and stuff, versus, like, does it still feel like the MLP at all, or is it?
No, it doesn't feel like MLP whatsoever.
Yeah.
And if it did feel like MLP, right? So if it was MLP, they wouldn't be singling me out as somebody to go get, right? Everything I've ever said has been, I've been loyal to Major League Pickleball. I was one of the first people to sign with Major League Pickleball on this. I've always played Major League Pickleball. I've played every single one.
You've won Major League Pickleball.
I've won it a few times. I was the only player to make a public statement in favor of Major League Pickleball during this entire thing. I went out there, I put my neck on the line for Major League Pickleball, and now I'm being punished for that. So if I'm actually dealing with Major League Pickleball, they'd be bending over backwards for me, right? There's nobody who's promoted Major League Pickleball more than I have. And I'm just not. I'm not dealing with Major League Pickleball.
Yeah.
How do you think is the APP just irrelevant? Is APP going to benefit from this to some extent? Is the APP just a niche market? What do you think about APP now?
I certainly don't think they're irrelevant, but actually think that Thomas had a really good point on our podcast where they're the cockroach. And at first I was like, wow, that's a crappy thing to say. But when he explained it, they're the ones that are going to survive the nuclear holocaust.
Right. They're out of the fray. They're doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, and they always I thought they treated you really well.
Yeah, I had a great relationship with the APP. I have no issues over there, and
they're like player people too. And you've got Ken Herman and Byron Frezzo, great player advocates.
Yeah, they're just running a sustainable and honest business. Like, so, yeah, I mean, I think that this is going to be a net positive for the APP.
Yeah, because if they're going to punish people by saying you can't play in PPAs, then why not go over to APPs where there's increased prize money now, and if you're good enough, you can get some guarantees and some stipends and things like that, and keep your name out there, and in your competition. I've thought that they would have benefited earlier from this, but I kind of wonder if they're going to benefit now. Do you have any thought on what direction that's going to go?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think there's still a lot to uncover. Like, does Major League Pickleball come back to us with a better deal on this? Does Major League Pickleball stop and then it's PPA's turn to go make aggressive cuts? Does this merge happen? Does it not happen? There's a lot that needs to happen on the MLP PPA side to speculate on how that affects the APP. But I think that they don't quite care. They're going to do their thing, and they're going to run their sustainable business, and I think that's good for them.
They survived. They got gutted. They lost when they lost the golden tickets. Their amateur following fell way down. But they just keep on keeping on. They're in a really good group of people. And Sam and I were talking, and it was like at Nationals, 3 of the 4 semifinalists in the singles in the men's bracket came from the APP.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still good pickleball there.
Definitely.
And Daescu and Nunnery as a team.
Daescu's a baller.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, it'd be fun to play some more with him.
Yeah, you and him together is a great squad. But him and Nunnery together are great too.
Absolutely.
I don't know. What do you think about? Where do you think APP is going, Sam?
I mean, I think that other than the pro pickleball scene, they've got the amateurs down. They've got the senior pros down. They've got the up and coming pros down, like the young kids, the next gens. So I mean, I think that basically, if they can just hold on to some of these, because I feel like some of these pros are using them as a step stool to get to the PPA. If they're able to start to retain some of these pros that are going through there, then I think that they'll be just fine, you know. And that starts with people like Nunnery and Diescu who are being treated well by them, and they're not having to deal with all this PPA drama. You know, the longer this drama goes on with the PPA and the MLP, the more it kind of is attractive, I think. Wouldn't you say, like, it's kind of attractive to be like Diescu and Nunnery are like not in this? Well, I mean, they're MLP guys, but
They
it's
both
also, like,
signed MLP, so
yeah.
it's
So I mean, yes, they're kind of in it, but they don't. They're the PPA or the APP kind of like players, I guess. So they're not really tied in with the PPA. So because there's a lot of allegiances that are kind of getting weird with the MLP and the PPA being merged, and you're a part of the PPA, you're a part of the MLP. These guys are like a part of the MLP with the APP. So it's like they have a backup in the APP, you know, that they could probably go to if this all kind of goes away. Like I said,
I think
like
we all have a backup with the APP.
Yeah.
They really, you know, the APP, they're not a spiteful organization, meaning like, I don't think that they're going to.
they'll welcome y'all back with open arms.
I would say so.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
they want to share what revenue they have and what sponsorship they have with the players. It's just that it's been, you know, they do have some, but it's difficult. But if you all started going back there and they started getting more eyes on them, started streaming more, and they could get more sponsorships, I feel like they would share equitably with the players. So me personally, I've always rooted for them, and I think they were smart to go with next gen.
Yeah, that's good. That's good play.
Now they're, you know, and they had senior pro and super senior pro and all that kind of stuff, but they're getting competition now from other things. There's leagues going on there, whatever. But
So I got a bold opinion too. I think you know, there's APP, MLP, PPA. I think somebody else. Here's a prediction for 2024. There's NPL as well. I guarantee there is another league started in the professional game. Not necessarily the senior pro game, but I bet you there's another competitor in 2024 with all this stuff. And I think that's not going to be the last either.
Do they strictly go just for the pro players, or do they include any kind of amateur or seniors or anything, or is it just a pro league?
I mean, I think right now it's just too easy to tie amateurs in with your pro stuff, and it's a cash cow. So I would guess that there's probably amateur stuff as well.
well, there's minor league pickleball, which I believe Steve still owns.
Minor league pickleball is owned by Duper, which is
it's owned by Duper.
Steve is the Steve is the
And people love it. I haven't done it. I coached one time. Some over at Kissing Tree, I coached an MLP event. Everybody loved it. Have you done a minor league?
No, I mean that would be if I ever returned back to the tournament scene, I would do minor league.
Because I think people are loving that.
I think I think it's a great format.
And I don't. It's not that important, but I don't know if you're aware. But APP came out with their own senior pro teams and super senior pro teams.
I thought they came out with regular pro teams as well, didn't they? Or no?
I don't know about that.
Okay, I don't know. Interesting. Are you gonna play?
I got drafted, but after my surgeries, I already had to drop out of the first event. So
When's the first one?
it's Punta Gorda.
Okay.
You've been to Punta Gorda before.
Oh yeah.
So that's like mid-January. So I'm trying to get in by February or March, but you know, we'll see. So yes, it's a very interesting time. So you think another? You know what might happen? Maybe the PPA is going to revive Vibe.
It's annual at this point. If this merger fails, Vibe merch goes on sale immediately.
I mean, that stuff's classic, right? The Vibe merch.
It's going to be the Enron T-shirts. It's going to be next generation's Enron T-shirts.
Yeah.
For multiple reasons.
Blockbuster.
I have a couple more questions for you before I hand it off to Sam, who you know has some great questions for you. I want to know a little bit about your tennis background. You played at the same college as Matt Zarowski.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was that? Is Wisconsin something?
Wisconsin Whitewater, baby.
Wisconsin
Come on, home of the Warhawks.
Division II.
D3.
Oh, D3. Okay. Are you from Wisconsin?
Yeah, so I'm from Racine, Wisconsin. I played tennis in high school. I peaked in high school, actually. I won 3 state championships in tennis, Division II. And then I went on to play tennis at Wisconsin Whitewater, where we were the #1 ranked public school in D3. But they have all these nerdy schools like Carnegie Mellon and Amherst and
all
Emory.
the rich kids go.
All the smart kids go. But we were the #1 public school in the rankings. So I loved my time over at Whitewater. And actually, I was beating the drum for pickleball when I was playing at Whitewater, and my coach was like, "You're gonna screw up your tennis. You're gonna screw up your tennis. You're gonna screw up your volleys." I played pickleball exclusively between the summer of my sophomore year and my junior year, and I came back in the fall, and I was playing sick tennis. And Frank Barnes goes, I was never a good doubles player before that either. Frank Barnes goes, "What did you do this summer? Like, you must have been working on your volleys, all this stuff." I was like, "Frank, I didn't pick up a tennis racket. I played pickleball every single day this summer. And since then, he loves it. He's got his guys playing pickleball every now and then during practices. He plays a bunch. So I'm still a big fan of the Warhawks.
What year was that? Like in between those years?
Let's see. I graduated college in That was weird. I graduated early, but I did a master's program.
Several years ago.
Yeah, it would have been like 2016, 2017.
So you were good at tennis. Did you ever play like national tournaments as an individual or anything like that, or state tournaments, or were you just mostly for your school?
I played some USTA stuff. I was never that good. Like, I mean, I was a top 50 player in the Midwest. I was usually like a top 3 or 4 player in Wisconsin.
I heard from somebody, because at the time you had the Zanesaw and you had the best serve in pickleball, that your serve in tennis was not your strength.
Oh yeah, my serve in tennis was dog shit. I won more. I have more aces in pickleball than I ever had in tennis. So actually, fortunately for me, my tennis game translated absolutely perfectly to pickleball.
That's what I was going to ask. So how does somebody that's playing D3 go from that into being top 5, top 10 in the world in pickleball?
Just basically the skills required from pickleball translated exactly to what I did have in tennis. What I didn't have in tennis was a good serve. I really was pretty bad at hitting like high forehands too. So people could just kind of get away with
Big looping top spins.
Yeah, super heavy ball. And I was pretty good at taking him on the rise.
Yeah.
But I wasn't good enough here.
And you can't get the ball up that high in pickleball.
No. I never have to hit a forehand from here off the bounce in pickleball. But I was really good at taking the ball on the rise and taking time away from my opponents in tennis. I was crafty. Like, I had good drop shots.
Mm-hmm.
I had a pretty spinny forehand as well.
Did you have a two-handed backhand?
Yeah, I had a really good backhand that I could like sort of misdirect wherever I wanted to, so I would take it on the rise, and I could really move the point around and control the point with my backhand. So basically everything that I was bad at, I left in tennis. Everything that I was good at, I was able to take to pickleball. So I was very fortunate that it translated really well.
God bless.
So you'd be able to like spot some tennis players. Bless you.
Thank you.
You'd be able to spot some tennis players and kind of be like, well, their game would translate a little bit easier in pickleball. Like if you were to like be scouting out tennis players, because there is that like transitionary period to where some tennis players come over and you can tell that they're going to be good, but they have a learning curve that's a little bit harder to get past than some of them, you know.
Yeah, I think that the players, at least singles players that can take the ball on the rise, take it early, and have compact strokes. The people like a Jack Sock, I've always said, even before I've ever even seen him play pickleball, I always said he would be an unbelievable pickleball player because he generates so much power from here to here on his forehand. People who have those compact strokes, they are the ones that compact strokes and have that fast twitch snap in their ground strokes. Those are the ones that translate.
Who would you say, if you could pick any tennis player ever, who would you say that would translate the best, like in your opinion?
I did say Jack Sock.
Yeah.
Um,
For that, just okay.
I did say Jack Sock. Kyrgios would be good because he has that bump backhand and he has that same sort of forehand where he's just here and it's super super fast.
He's been talking
twitch.
about it too.
Yeah, he has.
He was at a pickleball event like last week. I saw the Miami Pickleball Club posted him.
Has he ever played?
I mean,
Has anybody seen him play?
Oh, I don't know, but he says he enjoys it. I think he's thinking about it.
He's also really crafty, right? Like
he is.
Oh yeah,
just so that
his touch is sick. I mean, and he's an amazing athlete.
Let's see. There's this guy. There's this crazy Polish guy from like 10 years ago named Jerzy Janowicz. You ever heard of him?
No.
Insane. I think he's retired now or got kicked out of pro tennis, but he was like 6'8", but had crazy good touch on drop shots and like really good volleys. And then there's another guy. He played at UCLA. I can't remember his name. He's kind of crazy too, but he's a serve and volleyer.
Creasy?
Yeah, Maxime Cressy.
Yeah.
Yeah. He'd be good too.
Yeah.
What about you, Komie? What do you think?
I don't know. All I know is Jack Sock figures out how to play pickleball and never hit a backhand. He can run around anything and just smack that forehand. I think that's pretty amazing.
This is true, and he can at least bail out with that slice backhand, right?
Yeah.
So
what was it like when you had that spin serve, and because your serve wasn't good in tennis, and all of a sudden you're getting these short replies? Well, I mean, that must have felt like just amazing to you to be able to take that second ball and just put it away or hurt somebody really bad.
yeah, I mean, like it was a nice weapon. It was weird starting the point out and an advantage on my serve for once in my life. But it took, like, you can ask my fiance. When I was doing the two-handed spin serve, like I would go until my fingers would bleed, like just practicing it because it was going all over the place.
Oh wow!
Like when I was doing the one-handed spin serve, for a while, I legitimately had a blister and a hole in my finger right there where the ball was rubbing on there, and like it's a miracle it didn't get infected because it was legitimately like a couple millimeter deep hole where the ball would just be like rolling over.
So that's amazing because you basically invented that serve. And how did that come to your mind? How did you know to like fight through cuts and blood and all that stuff? Did you just have a vision? Did you have a clear vision of where you thought it could go and you just weren't taking no for an answer? Or how did that go?
Yeah, so the way that it originated was me and Johnson Cola started, we were drilling and we were working on our ground strokes. And we were hitting topspin to topspin. And I noticed like when we're both hitting topspin, my ball started to float. But when he sliced it to me, I was still getting really good topspin. So we started to realize that in pickleball, the spin that comes to you continues on your paddle. Whereas in tennis, the spin that comes to you, it catches the pocket, absorbs it, and basically wipes it off. So when the ball is spinning at you in tennis, it's not as big of a deal as when the ball is spinning at you in pickleball. So we started to realize, okay, if the person is slicing to me, I can generate more topspin. If they're hitting topspin to me, I can't generate as much. So COVID happens, and they say that you can then toss the ball off of the paddle to yourself so that you don't have to touch the ball. And I thought to myself, well, because this is right at the same time where I was thinking about the spins, I think to myself, okay, well, can I like roll the ball off my paddle so that it's spinning and then hit it? I send that video to Don Stanley in like January of 2021, and he says, yeah, I don't see any reason why that's not legal. So I started spin serving that way, where I would put the ball on the paddle face. I would pull it one way, pull it the other way.
Mm-hmm. And it would shoot like in the air. You had it like it seemed.
Yeah,
like
I would like basically toss it up into the air and then go hit it. So I would spin it, I would roll it off the paddle to myself and then go hit it.
I mean, that's like evil genius because everybody else just takes the ball, drops it, and smacks it. You know.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just reading the rule book, I guess. But so I send that video to Don Stanley before the very first PPA tournament of that year. PPA says can't do that.
They already knew about it.
Yeah, because I think Don was working with the PPA at that point. They outlawed the off of the paddle, and then it actually worked to my advantage because I realized instead of rolling the ball off of the paddle, I have my paddle in my right hand, and I put my ball in the right hand as well, and then I roll it off of my fingers, which generates a whole lot more spin.
Oh.
So I can thank the PPA for that that second innovation because I was dead set on doing that.
The chainsaw was the one off the paddle because you looked more like a chainsaw.
It started off the paddle, but then I think of the chainsaw. I did off the paddle for one tournament.
Oh, okay,
only.
that's it. Oh.
How'd you do in that tournament, by the way?
So actually, the tournament that I did it, I only was able to do it in one match because the tournament was Punta Gorda of 2021. The 2021 rules that year actually went into effect like January 21st. So I was under the impression that okay, it's 2021, the 2020 rules.
I remember that.
So I played one match spinning it off of my paddle, and they said after that match they told me that I can't continue to do that. And so
because it was before the 21st, or
yeah, because that tournament was January 15th.
Mm-hmm.
But the 2021 rules didn't actually go into effect until like the 21st or something of January. So I basically served illegally for one match.
You remember who it was?
Yeah, who
It was against Jack Foster.
he hated you, right?
Yeah.
What's that?
He hated you, right? He probably couldn't get near that serve.
Oh yeah, that won me. It certainly won me that match.
You were
for sure.
spinning it into his backhand, I'm assuming.
Well, I was only doing topspin at that point. I hadn't even figured out that. So it didn't actually do a whole lot, but
It wasn't going like different directions, like
not yet. I didn't figure out yet that I could go sideways with it. I was just getting topspin. But then the rest of that tournament, I was just basically rolling the ball to myself, and that was actually my first gold medal. So after that match, I just started like I wasn't even really doing it very much. I just started flicking my wrist a little bit for it, and I won that tournament. Yeah. So then I started doing it. I think of the chainsaw as the two-handed spin serve.
Oh, right. That looks like you're pulling a chainsaw.
It still kind of looks like you're pulling the chainsaw. Because not too many people ever did the off of the paddle serve. There was no real reason.
Sam
to.
did.
I did.
At my house against me.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah? How'd that work?
When it worked.
It worked against an old guy.
Yeah.
Is that why he's got to get his knees done now? Because of you?
Probably. No. And then you started doing snap serve.
Yeah, they outlawed the two-handed chainsaw serve, and my argument was like, you're either for spin serves or you're against spin serves. Why can I spin serve one way but not the other way? And then I think they realized that that's probably a fair argument, and
They chased after you for a couple of years. Like they'd make one change and then you'd get around that, and then they couldn't put until the next year, right? And then you got to use it for a whole year.
I ended up with 2 years of spin serves basically.
Yeah.
I've got to be responsible for more rule changes than anybody.
And I think you're responsible for some at the airport too, aren't you? With luggage.
With luggage.
Yeah, didn't you tell me where you take your luggage and the trick is to go through security with your luggage and say it's a carry-on, but then they check them there or something.
Yeah, so if you don't have, there was a period there where as long as you don't have like containers, as long as you can take your stuff through security, what I would do is I would just go up to the TSA people and say, I'm running late for my flight. They told me that I need to check it at the gate. And there's a period during COVID where if you checked the bag at the gate, they would just let you pick your bag up on the jet bridge on the way out rather than waiting for it to go to the baggage claim. So I would just bring my bags in and through, drop it off at the jet bridge, and then pick it up on the jet bridge, so I didn't have to go wait for for the bags to come through.
So did your parents like have their hands full with you when you were a kid? I mean, you must have been thinking about all kinds of ways to get to do things and
Yeah, I kind of enjoy the I should have been a lawyer, I think. I like the loopholes. My favorite thing that I ever did was sneaking into the Western and Southern Open in Cincinnati. Maybe I could have been a forensic accountant too. But we get there and they're not selling grounds passes. And we were in college. Those were like $20. You had to buy a ticket for like center court in order to actually get in or something weird like that. But anyway, it was going to cost us like $100 to get in. So I was like, I was with Jenny. Basically, what happened was you need to have a ticket stub and a sticker to get in. So I bring a tennis ball with a cut in it. I buy a ticket, I go in, I come out, I get my stamp, I go meet Jenny in the parking lot, we transfer the stamps on the thing, I go back in with my stamp and my ticket, I take the ticket stub, I launch it into the parking lot in the cut open tennis ball, so that Jenny has the stamp and the ticket stub and gets in.
Oh my God.
So I do kind of enjoy that stuff.
One day when I talk to your dad, I'm going to ask him about things you must have pulled as a kid. So we're getting close to near the end of our time, and Sam has some carefully crafted questions. I don't know if we're going to be able to get to them all, but do you have some favorite ones that we want to give to our favorite guest here?
These are kind of.
I'm the first one. Why don't we have why don't we come back to that when you have more than one guest?
You don't want to revisit that.
We're a little over time right now.
Well, we can go till.
What, did you guys only have half hour?
Yeah, we can go.
No, we've been doing it for an hour and 22.
Yeah, we can go. Let's go to hour and a half.
Yeah,
let's go. We got 8 minutes with with the number.
We've been going since 2:00.
Yeah.
Dang, this has been flying by.
Yeah.
When I have to podcast with Thomas, it's like, oh my God, it's been 45 minutes only.
Yeah, you're like sweating and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I love
I'm
Tom.
not sure.
There was someone there that were. Do you have a favorite?
I mean, there's just a bunch of random questions.
You got one that's funny? You got anything funny for our boy here?
What's something that people misunderstand about you?
Jamie, you're fired. So something people misunderstand about me. Oh, this is fun. People think I'm nice. So like in a way I am nice, but my friend Connor Kane, who's in my wedding, who's been a buddy of mine since high school, he describes me as the nicest asshole you'll ever meet. Because like when I'm buddies with somebody, basically all I do is talk shit to them and like rip on them. And
does he rip on you, Sam?
Nah, sometimes.
All right, so I guess you're almost his buddy then.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
But like people come up to me at tournaments, and I'll be with like some of my friends, or I'll be with Jenny, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, Zane is so nice," and I'm just like, "You guys have no idea. You have no idea."
What else you got? Basically, what he's saying, he's devilish.
Devilish. That's where I think that's why we bonded, because I was real with Zane from the beginning. I was pretty.
Yeah, you were a savage. Respect.
Yeah.
I just like straight shooters.
All right. Well, maybe we should think about wrapping it up.
These are too nice. These are too wholesome.
We're kind of struggling here. I think this was a great first episode. Zane, I really appreciate you coming on. Sam, you're my man. Got it. We got one done. And
oh wait, we can't have that on film.
All right. And I guess Komie's homies are out.
Love it. Good stuff, boy.